I sent a single photograph to our family group chat. My 5-year-old daughter was pale and covered in wires after a grueling open-heart surgery that nearly took her life. I typed that she was finally awake and asking to see them. My older brother replied instantly that he was busy and I needed to handle it myself. My mother chimed in right after to say that since she lived, I needed to stop making her our problem. I simply replied that it was perfectly fine. They had no idea that by 11 o'clock that night, they would be dropping their wine glasses in absolute horror at what they saw on the local news. My name is Erica, and I am 34 years old. I am sitting in the freezing pediatric intensive care unit of a Chicago hospital. The rhythmic beeping of the heart monitor keeps me from falling apart. My daughter Lily is asleep in the oversized bed. Her tiny chest is wrapped in thick bandages. She just survived a dangerous open-heart surgery. For 8 agonizing hours, I paced the waiting room alone, praying she would open her eyes again. The toll of sitting in a plastic chair for 3 days has settled into my bones. My back aches and my eyes burn. But none of that matters. All that matters is the slight rise and fall of my daughter's chest. She is alive. She had to be a fighter to survive in a world where the people who are supposed to love you unconditionally simply do not care. I carefully pull my phone from my pocket. My hands are shaking slightly from exhaustion. I take a picture of Lily. She looks fragile against the stark pillows, but a faint pink color is returning to her cheeks. I navigate to the group chat labeled Family, containing my mother Barbara and my older brother Jason. I attach the photo and type a short message. The surgery was a success. Lily is exhausted, but she is stable. She wants to see you. I press send and wait. For my entire life, I have played the role of the forgotten daughter. I was the quiet one who stayed out of the way while my parents poured all their attention and resources into Jason. Jason is 36 years old and works as a medical equipment sales executive. He is loud, arrogant, and convinced of his superiority. My parents treat him like a king, celebrating his every minor achievement with extravagant dinners. Meanwhile, my struggles and triumphs are met with polite indifference. My phone buzzes against my leg. I quickly pick it up, expecting a question about visiting hours or an expression of relief. Instead, I see a message from Jason. Busy. Handle it. I have a massive vendor pitch tomorrow. I read the words 3 times to make sure my brain is processing them correctly. My daughter just had her chest cracked open, and my brother is telling me to handle it because he has a sales pitch. Before I can even type a reply, another message pops up from my mother Barbara. She lived. We are at a wine tasting for Jason's promotion. Stop making her our problem. I sit frozen in the hospital chair. The sheer cruelty of the words takes my breath away. My 5-year-old child is nothing but an inconvenient problem interrupting their wine tasting. They are celebrating a promotion, while my daughter is attached to a ventilator. I have bent over backwards to accommodate their schedules and tolerate their slights to keep the peace. I did this hoping they would love me. I look back down at my phone. I do not cry. I have no tears left for these people. The well of forgiveness I have drawn from for 34 years is finally dry. I type a 4-word response. It is perfectly fine. I press send and lock the screen. A strange sense of absolute calm washes over me. The anxiety and the desperate need for their approval evaporate into the cold hospital air. I am not helpless. The heavy door to the intensive care unit swings open. A nurse walks in, carrying a fresh bag of intravenous fluids. Her name tag says Nancy. She moves quietly to the bed and checks the monitors before switching out the bags. "How is our brave little girl doing this evening?" she asks in a soft whisper. "She is resting peacefully," I reply. "The doctor said her vitals are looking very strong." Nancy smiles and pats my shoulder. "That is wonderful news. You must be so relieved. Have you called your family to share the good news? Is your father on his way to see her? I look up at Nancy and offer a tight smile. No one is coming. My father only goes where my brother Jason goes, and Jason is too busy attending a wine tasting to be bothered with a hospital visit. Nancy stops and looks at me in pure shock. A wine tasting, she asks, as if she cannot believe she heard me correctly. Your daughter just had open heart surgery and they are at a wine tasting? I nod slowly. Yes. They explicitly told me to stop making my daughter their problem, so I am going to do exactly that. They will never have to worry about us being their problem again. Nancy shakes her head in disgust. I am so sorry, Erica. No mother should have to sit through this alone. I appreciate that, Nancy, I say softly. But honestly, it is their loss. I will be perfectly fine alone. Nancy pauses at the doorway and glances at the empty visitor chair beside Lily's bed. The whiteboard where nurses record family contacts is blank beside grandmother, grandfather, and uncle. She asks whether anyone should be added to the overnight list in case I need food or a shower. I unlock my phone and show her the call log. 3 calls to my mother, 2 to my father, and 1 to Jason were ignored before surgery. The only answers came after I sent the photograph, and those answers told me exactly where we stood. Has it always been like this? Nancy asks. I look toward Lily before answering. Last winter, Lily was admitted after a dangerous cardiac episode. My mother stayed 11 minutes, long enough to take a lobby photograph, and post that she was supporting her granddaughter. Then she left for one of Jason's sales dinners. My father never entered the building because parking was inconvenient. Jason promised to visit after dinner, but posted photographs from a private club until 2 in the morning. I state the facts while Nancy checks the medication pump. When Lily needed a ride to cardiology, Barbara had a salon appointment. When I asked Richard to sit with her during a scan, Jason needed help choosing a new car. Every request involving Lily was treated as unreasonable. Every request involving Jason became a family emergency. I spent years rearranging work and borrowing favors because I wanted Lily to believe she had grandparents who cared about her. Nancy writes her name and the nurse's station number on the contact board. Then she brings me a clean blanket, hot tea, and a charging cable. Those small acts contain more kindness than my family has shown in 3 days. The staff celebrate every stable reading and tiny improvement. My relatives have not asked for one medical detail beyond whether Lily survived. I glance at the empty chair and realize I am no longer waiting for Barbara to fill it. The group chat lights up again. Instead of concern, Jason posts 4 wine glasses raised beneath a chandelier with the caption, "Future Partner Celebration." My mother writes that the family is finally receiving the recognition it deserves. My father adds that tomorrow belongs to Jason and no distractions will be tolerated. There is no mention of Lily. I save a screenshot in a folder labeled Family Records, not to plan revenge on, but to preserve the truth before they can rewrite this night and claim they supported us. Nancy asks whether I want the phone placed in a drawer. I shake my head. I need to see them clearly one final time. After she returns to the nurse's station, I listen to the machines measure the rhythm my family dismissed as drama. The monitor does not care who is celebrated at expensive dinners or who holds the impressive title. It responds only to reality. For the first time in my life, I decide I will do the same. I close the family chat and set the phone beside my laptop. Minutes later, it vibrates across the tray table. My father's name appears. A tiny, irrational hope rises that he has finally called about Lily. I answer because I need to hear the truth directly from him, not because I expect comfort. A soft knock draws my attention toward the heavy glass door. Nancy, the overnight nurse, steps quietly back into the room. She moves with practiced efficiency, checking the intravenous lines and recording Lily's vital signs on the chart at the foot of the bed. Her presence is a comforting anchor in the sterile environment. She looks at me with a mixture of professional concern and genuine empathy. "You should try to get some sleep, Erica," she whispers softly. "The hard part is over. Your little girl is doing incredibly well, and her heart is strong. You need to gather your strength for the recovery process." I offer her a genuine smile for the first time in days. "I appreciate that, Nancy, but I do not think I could sleep right now even if I tried. Adrenaline is a powerful thing." She nods knowingly and adjusts the blanket around Lily's small shoulders with gentle care. Before Nancy can step away, my cell phone vibrates against the plastic tray table. The harsh buzzing sound shatters the quiet intimacy of the room. I glance at the screen and feel a sudden tightening in my chest. The caller identification displays my father, Richard. A tiny, irrational spark of hope flares in my heart. Perhaps my mother felt a twinge of guilt at the wine tasting. Perhaps she told my father about the surgery and he is calling to check on his only granddaughter. Nancy notices my hesitation and steps toward the door to give me privacy. I take a deep breath and swipe the screen to answer the call. "Hello, Dad," I say, keeping my voice low and steady to avoid waking Lily. The background noise on the other end of the line is loud, with clinking glasses and laughter. It is clear he is still at the celebration. "Erica," my father says loudly over the noise of the party. "Listen, I need you to do me a favor. Tomorrow morning." The tiny spark of hope extinguishes instantly, replaced by a cold, familiar, hollow feeling. He did not ask how Lily survived the 8-hour open-heart surgery. He did not ask if I was holding up okay after sitting in a hospital chair for 3 days. He is calling for a favor. "What do you need, Dad?" I ask, my voice entirely devoid of emotion. "Jason has his massive pitch with the Apex executives tomorrow afternoon," he explains impatiently. "He spilled red wine on his lucky tailored suit tonight. He needs it dry cleaned and pressed before noon. I need you to go to his apartment, grab the suit, and take it to the express cleaners downtown. They know me there and will rush the order." I stare at the heart monitor, tracking my daughter's steady pulse. My father knows exactly where I am. He knows I am in the intensive care unit, watching over a child who just had her chest cavity opened. Yet his only concern is acting as an errand boy for his precious golden child. "I am in the hospital, Dad," I reply, keeping my tone conversational and perfectly calm. "Lily cannot be left alone right now. She just got out of surgery." My father sighs heavily, conveying his profound disappointment. "You are always making excuses, Erica. The nurses can watch her for 2 hours. This presentation is the most important moment of your brother's entire career. It dictates his future. You need to stop being so selfish and think about the family for once. Your brother needs this suit cleaned, and I am paying the bill, so just go do it." The sheer audacity of his demand would have devastated me yesterday. Today, it simply hardens my resolve. "I am not picking up Jason's suit, Dad," I state clearly and firmly. "He is 36 years old and can manage his own laundry. Furthermore, I will not be leaving my daughter's bedside for any reason." There is a sharp intake of breath on the other end of the line. The background chatter seems to fade as my father steps into a quieter area to scold me properly. "You have always been an ungrateful disappointment," he hisses sharply. "Your brother is out here building a legacy while you expect the world to stop turning just because you have a sick kid. This is why you are always struggling, Erica. You lack discipline and loyalty. If you do not do this for Jason, do not bother calling us for anything else." I do not raise my voice. I do not defend my choices. I do not beg for his understanding. I simply say goodbye and end the call. I place the phone face down on the table and listen to the steady hum of the hospital room. For 34 years, I allowed their favoritism to dictate my sense of worth. I accepted scraps of attention and called them love. I let them treat my brilliant daughter as an inconvenience while they celebrated every ordinary thing Jason did. That arrangement ends tonight. My father believes threatening to cut me off will force me back into obedience, because he knows nothing about the company I built after Lily went to sleep, or the confidential negotiations now waiting for one final decision. He does not know how close I am to complete independence. Most importantly, he does not know that the career he worships may soon be measured by standards I created. I look at Lily and make myself a promise. I will never leave her bedside to serve Jason again, and I will never allow these people to define our future. I place the phone back down on the tray table. The plastic surface is cold and hard under my fingers. My father is gone from the line, but his cruel words still hang heavily in the silent room. He actually believes I am going to run downtown to fetch a suit for the brother who could not even be bothered to ask if my daughter survived her surgery. I let out a long, slow breath and feel the last remaining thread of my familial loyalty snap and dissolve into nothing. Just as I am about to turn my attention back to Lily, the screen of my phone lights up again. It is not another demanding message from my parents. The notification banner displays a high security alert from a corporate legal firm. I pick up the device and unlock the screen. My inbox shows a newly arrived encrypted email from my lead business attorney. The subject line reads, Apex Health Network Acquisition, Final Signatures Required. I tap the secure link and wait for the encrypted portal to load on my screen. The loading icon spins for a few seconds before revealing a massive legal document. I am sitting in a sterile pediatric intensive care unit, wearing a wrinkled sweater and drinking stale hospital coffee. To my parents and my brother, I am nothing but a struggling single mother who cannot get her life together. They see me as a cautionary tale and a constant disappointment. They genuinely believe I am barely scraping by on an entry-level salary. They have absolutely no idea what I have been doing late at night after Lily goes to sleep. They do not know about the countless hours I spent sitting at a cramped kitchen table, writing thousands of lines of complex code. I built a revolutionary health data analytics platform entirely from scratch. My software utilizes advanced machine learning algorithms to predict patient deterioration before clinical symptoms even appear. I programmed the entire application natively using the Kotlin programming language specifically for Android devices. This allowed doctors and nurses to access real-time predictive data directly on their mobile tablets as they walked the hospital floors. The system was designed to save lives and significantly reduce massive hospital inefficiencies. The initial pilot program at a small local clinic was an overwhelming success. Word spread quickly through the medical community about the software and its incredible predictive accuracy. Soon, regional directors were reaching out to me for demonstrations. That is when Apex Health entered the picture. Apex is the largest and most prestigious hospital network in the entire Midwest region. They recognized immediately that my platform could save their network hundreds of millions of dollars over the next decade by streamlining procurement and identifying vendor fraud. We have been in intense, confidential negotiations for the past 6 months. Now the final contract is sitting right here on my phone screen, waiting for my authorization. I scroll past the dense legal jargon and focus on the primary financial terms. The purchase price for my proprietary software platform is clearly stated in bold black text. Apex Health is acquiring my company for exactly $68 million. I stare at the number for a long time. 6 and an 8 followed by 6 zeros. It is a sum of money so vast that it almost does not feel real. I look over at Lily sleeping quietly in her hospital bed. Her chest rises and falls with a steady, comforting rhythm. The surgeon successfully repaired her fragile heart, and now this document is going to repair our entire future. The days of clipping coupons and worrying about rising rent prices are officially over. I will be able to afford the best pediatric cardiology specialists in the country. Lily will have every opportunity she could ever want, and she will never have to beg for scraps of affection from a family that views her as a burden. I place my thumb on the screen and slowly scroll down to the executive appointments section of the contract. The acquisition does not just involve a massive financial payout. The executive board at Apex Health was so impressed with my systemic approach to healthcare efficiency that they insisted on bringing me in-house to oversee their digital transition. The contract officially appoints me as the new Vice President of Technology and Procurement for the entire Apex network. This specific executive title is not just a prestigious role with a corner office. It grants me absolute, unilateral authority over every single vendor contract within the hospital system. No medical equipment supplier can sell their products to any Apex facility without my direct review and personal signature. I think about my brother Jason, standing in his stained suit at a wine tasting right now. Tomorrow afternoon, he will confidently walk into the Apex corporate headquarters, expecting to secure the most lucrative contract of his career. He has built his entire professional reputation on this single deal. My parents have already started celebrating his inevitable promotion to partner at his firm. They believe his success is a foregone conclusion. They think the executives at Apex will be charmed by his arrogant smile and aggressive sales tactics. They have absolutely no clue that the final decision rests solely in my hands. I tap the digital signature box at the very bottom of the screen. A small prompt asks me to confirm my identity and authorize the execution of the contract. I type my full legal name with careful, deliberate keystrokes. I hit the submit button, and a green checkmark appears on the screen, indicating that the transaction is complete. The deal is officially closed. I am now a multimillionaire and one of the most powerful corporate healthcare executives in the region. I lock my phone and place it gently back on the tray table. A profound sense of tranquility settles over my shoulders. All the anxiety and exhaustion that have plagued me for the past week simply wash away into the cold hospital air. I stand up from the uncomfortable plastic chair and walk over to the side of my daughter's bed. I lightly brush a stray lock of hair away from her forehead, taking care not to disturb the various wires and sensors monitoring her vital signs. She stirs slightly in her sleep and lets out a soft sigh. "We are going to be perfectly fine, my sweet girl," I whisper into the quiet room. "We do not need them anymore. We have everything we need right here." I return to my chair and wrap a thin hospital blanket around my shoulders. I am no longer the scapegoat of a family that measures love in professional accolades and income brackets. I am the architect of my own destiny. Tomorrow morning, I will review the vendor proposals sitting in my new corporate inbox. I will examine every detail of the medical equipment my brother is attempting to sell to my hospital network. If his products do not meet the rigorous safety and efficiency standards I demand, I will reject his proposal without a second thought. I will not let a single substandard device or faulty surgical tool enter these facilities just so he can buy a luxury car. He has spent his entire life stepping on me to get ahead, but the dynamic has permanently shifted now. My father told me to handle my own problems, and that is exactly what I plan to do. The glow from the medical monitors casts a pale blue light across the room. I look at my phone one last time before sliding it into my pocket. The signature I just executed changed my entire bloodline. $68 million. The number echoes in my mind with every steady beep of the heart monitor. For years, I have calculated the exact cost of groceries and medical copays down to the final penny. I have skipped meals to afford the health insurance my daughter desperately needed. My family watched me struggle. They struggle me sacrifice my basic needs while they popped champagne to celebrate my brother's trivial sales quotas. They never offered assistance because they believed poverty was my punishment for not being the perfect daughter. I reach out and gently rest my hand over Lily's small fingers. She is the only family I have ever truly needed. With the Apex Health acquisition closed, I will never again have to wonder if I can afford her care. I can hire elite private nursing staff to assist with her recovery at home. I can buy a house in a quiet neighborhood where she can run and play safely. The magnitude of my new reality is intoxicating, but I force myself to remain grounded. The money is merely a tool. The real prize is the executive authority I now hold over the Apex Network Procurement Division. My brother Jason has built a career entirely on manipulation. He sells overpriced, substandard medical devices to hospitals by taking executives out for lavish dinners and buying their loyalty. He has never faced a buyer who actually understands the data behind the equipment. The long night slowly bleeds into morning. The darkness outside the hospital window shifts into a pale gray dawn. The intensive care unit wakes up as the day shift nurses arrive to relieve the overnight staff. Nancy walks into the room one last time to check Lily's vital signs before heading home. She smiles warmly and notes that Lily had a perfectly stable night without a single complication. A few hours later, the pediatric surgical team enters the room for morning rounds. The lead surgeon reviews the charts and examines the surgical site on Lily's chest. He turns to me with genuine relief and explains that her heart is responding beautifully to the repair. She is recovering much faster than they initially anticipated. Hearing a medical professional confirm that my daughter is going to survive brings a fresh wave of emotion to my chest, but this time it is purely tears of gratitude. Around noon, Lily finally opens her eyes. The heavy anesthesia has worn off, leaving her groggy and confused. I lean over the bed and gently stroke her cheek, speaking in a reassuring voice. I tell her how brave she has been and that the hardest part is over. She blinks slowly, taking in the strange surroundings, before her eyes focus on my face. She offers a weak smile that instantly melts away any lingering anxiety in my heart. Over the next 48 hours, her progress is nothing short of miraculous. The medical staff successfully removes the breathing tube, allowing her to breathe on her own. She starts eating small amounts of solid food, and the color returns to her face. By the morning of the third day post-surgery, the lead cardiologist officially clears her to be transferred out of the intensive care unit. The transition marks a massive milestone in our journey toward a normal life. As we settle into the new room, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the small bathroom mirror. The woman staring back looks completely exhausted. My hair is tangled, and there are deep, dark circles under my eyes from nearly a week of interrupted sleep in hospital chairs. I am still wearing the same faded gray sweater and jeans from when the ambulance rushed us to the emergency room. I desperately need a hot shower and a fresh change of clothes. Before the surgery, I packed an overnight bag with clean clothes, but I left it sitting in my old childhood bedroom at my parents' house. At the time, I thought my mother might bring it to the hospital when she visited. That naive hope feels completely foolish now. I know that if I want clean clothes, I'm going to have to drive to the suburbs and retrieve the bag myself. I wait until the afternoon, when Lily falls into a deep sleep after physical therapy. The nurses assure me they will keep a close watch and call my cell phone if she wakes up. I grab my keys and walk out of the hospital, stepping into the crisp Chicago air for the first time in a week. The drive to my parents' house takes nearly an hour due to heavy midday traffic. As I navigate the familiar tree-lined streets, a profound sense of detachment settles over me. I used to drive through these manicured neighborhoods feeling a deep sense of inadequacy. I always felt like an outsider, peering into a world of wealth and privilege that I was explicitly excluded from. My parents utilized their money as a weapon to control anyone who did not fit their precise image of success. Today, those massive brick houses do not intimidate me in the slightest. I turn onto my parents' street and immediately notice something is different. The long circular driveway is completely packed with expensive luxury vehicles. I recognize Jason's sleek black sports car parked near the entrance. Several other high-end sedans line the edge of the trimmed grass. It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon, on a weekday, and my parents are clearly hosting a significant gathering. I pull my worn, compact car to the side of the road and park behind a pristine sport utility vehicle. I turn off the engine and sit in the silence. My mother had texted me days ago claiming they were at a wine tasting for Jason's promotion. Apparently, the celebration has continued and expanded into a lavish daytime event at their home. They are throwing a party while their granddaughter recovers from open-heart surgery. Their callousness is absolutely staggering. I step out of my car and close the door. The crisp breeze catches my oversized sweater as I walk up the cobblestone path toward the heavy oak front door. I do not feel anxious or afraid of facing them anymore. The desperate daughter who craved their validation died in that hospital room. I am walking into this house as the Vice President of Technology and Procurement for the exact corporate entity they are trying to impress. I reach out and turn the polished brass handle. It is unlocked as usual for their social gatherings. I push the door open, and loud sounds of clinking glass and boisterous laughter instantly hit me. The foyer is filled with the scent of catered food and perfume. I step over the threshold and prepare to look my family straight in the eye. I am not here to demand their love. I am here to collect my belongings and witness their arrogance before I systematically dismantle it. I step fully into the grand foyer, and the heavy oak door clicks shut behind me, momentarily drowning out the street noise, but trapping me inside the overwhelming volume of their celebration. The entryway is decorated with lavish floral arrangements that must have cost more than a month of my rent. I walk past the sweeping mahogany staircase and step down into the sunken formal living room where the party is in full swing. Crystal glasses clink together as elegantly dressed guests mingle around a massive catered buffet filled with expensive imported delicacies. My mother Barbara is standing near the marble fireplace, holding a flute of champagne and laughing loudly at a joke someone just told. She is wearing a pristine white silk dress that looks brand new. Across the room, I see my brother Jason holding court. He is bragging loudly about his upcoming presentation to the Apex Health Network. He proudly declares to a group of investors that this contract will bring him a multi-million-dollar commission and solidify his position as a senior partner at his medical supply firm. His wife Ashley stands beside him, nodding approvingly as he boasts about their future wealth. Her eyes scan the room and suddenly lock onto my figure standing near the archway. The bright, practiced smile completely vanishes from her face, replaced instantly by a deep scowl of profound distaste. She excuses herself from her group of friends and marches across the plush Persian rug directly toward me. Her heels click sharply against the hardwood floor bordering the rug. She does not offer a hug or even a basic greeting. Instead, she stops 3 feet away from me and aggressively crosses her arms over her chest. "What on earth are you doing here, Erica?" She hisses under her breath, making sure her voice does not carry to her wealthy guests. "You look absolutely dreadful. You cannot just barge into a formal celebration looking like a vagrant." "I need to pick up the overnight bag I left in my old bedroom last week," I reply, keeping my voice perfectly level. "Lily is finally being discharged from the intensive care unit soon, and I need clean clothes for the transition." My mother visibly recoils at the mention of the hospital and takes an exaggerated step backward, as if my very presence is physically offensive to her. "Are you out of your mind?" she snaps, her eyes darting around nervously to see if anyone is watching us. "You have been sitting in a filthy, disease-ridden hospital ward for days, and you decide to waltz right into my home during a party. You are tracking dangerous hospital germs all over my clean floors. We have important people here today, Erica." "Your brother has invited several high-level contacts from his industry. I will not have you infecting our guests just because you could not be bothered to call ahead and ask me to leave your bag on the porch." The sheer lack of maternal instinct is breathtaking, but I refuse to show any emotional reaction. I decided to use this opportunity to test the absolute limits of their depravity. I need to know without a shadow of a doubt that they are entirely irredeemable before I let the axe fall on their entire lives. I take a slow breath and deliberately soften my posture, feigning the vulnerability they always expect from me. The doctors say Lily is recovering well, but she has a very long and difficult road ahead of her, I say quietly, forcing a note of desperation into my tone. The out-of-pocket medical costs are completely astronomical. The open-heart surgery alone depleted what little savings I had, and now she requires specialized in-home nursing care, expensive physical therapy, and a strict regimen of cardiac medications that my insurance refuses to fully cover. My mother rolls her eyes and lets out an exasperated sigh. We already told you that we are not discussing your problems today, Erica. We are celebrating Jason's massive promotion and his upcoming pitch to the Apex Health Network. Do not try to ruin his special day with your constant negativity. I push forward, determined to spring the trap I have laid for them. I am not asking for a handout, Mom, I continue, keeping my voice carefully modulated. I am asking for an advance on my portion of Grandpa Henry's trust fund. I know the principal is not supposed to be distributed for another 5 years, but the stipulations clearly allow for emergency medical disbursements if the trustees approve it. You and Dad are the trustees. I just need a small fraction of what Grandpa left for me to ensure my daughter does not suffer during her recovery. My father, Richard, apparently notices our tense conversation and excuses himself from Jason's group. He strides across the room with heavy, authoritative steps, his face already set in a rigid mask of disapproval. He comes to a halt next to my mother and glares down at me. "What is the meaning of this disruption, Erica?" he demands loudly enough that a few nearby guests turn their heads to look at us. "Your mother told you explicitly that we were busy today." I am simply asking for an emergency medical disbursement from Grandpa's trust fund to cover Lily's post-operative care. I repeat, looking my father straight in the eyes. It is my money. I just need you to authorize an early release so I can pay the hospital bills. Richard lets out a harsh, barking laugh that contains absolutely zero humor. He shakes his head as if I have just proposed something completely ridiculous. Absolutely not, he states with brutal finality. That money is tied up in complex family investments. Furthermore, Jason needs significant capital right now to entertain the Apex executives this week. He is taking their procurement directors out for expensive dinners and organizing luxury corporate retreats to secure this contract. That is a guaranteed return on investment for this family. But Lily is your granddaughter, I say, testing the very bottom of their moral compass. She needs medical care. My father steps closer, his face turning red with anger. Your daughter's medical bills are a direct consequence of your poor life choices, Erica, he hisses, pointing a thick finger at my chest. You chose to be a single mother. You chose to work a dead-end job instead of building a real career. We are not going to drain family resources to fund your endless drama. You need to learn how to stand on your own 2 feet and stop expecting us to bail you out of every mess you create. Jason, having noticed the commotion, wanders over to join our little family reunion. He takes a slow sip of his scotch and looks me up and down with an expression of pure, unadulterated contempt. "What is the matter, little sister?" he mocks, flashing his perfectly whitened teeth. "Are you crying over hospital bills again? I thought you said you were going to handle it yourself." "I need access to the trust fund, Jason," I say plainly. "The out-of-pocket costs are drowning me." Jason throws his head back and laughs out loud. It is a booming, arrogant sound that perfectly encapsulates his entire personality. He reaches into the pocket of his tailored slacks and pulls out a thick silver money clip stuffed with large bills. He casually peels a crisp $100 bill from the stack. He holds it up between 2 fingers, dangling it in the air between us, like a piece of meat in front of a starving dog. "You want some financial assistance?" he asks, his voice dripping with condescension. He suddenly lets go of the bill. It flutters through the air and lands on the hardwood floor right next to my scuffed sneakers. "There you go, Erica. Go buy the kid a balloon or something. Now, do us all a favor and get out of here before you depress my clients." I stare at the floor. The crisp $100 bill rests against the polished hardwood, a bright green symbol of their absolute disdain for my existence. The music in the room seems to fade into a dull hum, replaced by the rushing sound of my own heartbeat. Around us, the wealthy guests have paused their conversations to watch the spectacle. They are waiting for me to react. They expect tears. They expect me to scream, or beg, or storm out in a fit of dramatic rage. That is the version of me my family has sold to their social circle for years. The unstable, overly emotional sister who cannot handle the pressures of the real world. My mother takes a slow sip of her champagne, her eyes cold and unyielding. My father stands tall, with his chest puffed out, radiating the smug satisfaction of a man who believes he has just put a problem child firmly back in her place. But I do not give them the satisfaction of a reaction. I do not let a single tear form in my eyes. The anger that used to consume me in these moments has completely evaporated, leaving behind a chilling, crystalline clarity. I know something they do not. I know that their entire empire of arrogance is built on a foundation of sand, and I am currently holding the tidal wave that will wash it all away. I slowly bend my knees and lower myself toward the floor. The movement is deliberate and controlled. I reach out and pick up the $100 bill from the wood surface. It feels incredibly light in my fingers. I stand back up to my full height, carefully folding the currency in half before slipping it into the front pocket of my faded jeans. I smooth down my sweater and look directly into my brother's eyes. Jason is smirking, clearly victorious in his own mind. He thinks he has humiliated me. He thinks this $100 handout is a display of his massive success and untouchable status. I look from Jason to my father, who gives me a stern nod of dismissal, and finally to my mother, who has already turned her attention back to a tray of catered appetizers. I do not say a single word. I do not thank them for the money, and I do not curse them for their cruelty. The silence stretches between us, thick and uncomfortable, but I simply hold my ground for one more second, committing this exact moment to memory. This is the very last time I will ever stand in this house as their victim. I turn on my heel and begin walking back across the plush Persian rug. The guests part for me like a sea of expensive fabrics and judgmental stares. I keep my head held high, my posture perfectly straight. I do not rush. I walk past the lavish buffet table, past the sweeping mahogany staircase, and into the grand foyer. The air in the entryway feels thick with the scent of expensive floral arrangements, a cloying sweetness that suddenly makes my stomach turn. I reach the heavy oak front door, grasp the polished brass handle, and pull it open. I step out onto the front porch, pulling the door shut behind me with a solid, definitive click. The heavy thud of the wood closing feels like a period at the end of a very long, very painful chapter of my life. The crisp, cool afternoon air hits my face, instantly clearing the stifling atmosphere of the party from my lungs. I walk down the cobblestone path toward the street, my worn sneakers making a soft, rhythmic sound against the stones. I pass by the line of luxury vehicles parked along the circular driveway, including Jason's gleaming black sports car. He probably leased it just to maintain the illusion of his massive wealth. I reach my old compact car parked on the side of the road. It looks entirely out of place in this wealthy suburban neighborhood, but right now it feels like a sanctuary. I pull my keys from my pocket, unlock the door, and slide into the driver's seat. I close the door, encasing myself in the quiet, familiar space of my own vehicle. I lean back against the headrest and let out a long, slow breath. The $100 bill in my pocket feels like a physical reminder of the trap I just set. I ask them for help, giving them one final opportunity to act like a real family. They failed spectacularly. They chose their pride and their public image over the life of my 5-year-old daughter. They have sealed their own fate, and I feel absolutely no remorse for what I am about to do to them. I reach out to turn the key in the ignition, but before my fingers can grasp the metal, my cell phone vibrates violently in the cup holder. The screen lights up, illuminating the dim interior of the car. It is a direct encrypted text message from the Chief Executive Officer of the Apex Health Network. The man who just authorized a $68 million payout for my software company is messaging me personally. I pick up the phone and swipe to open the secure communication application. The message is brief, professional, and incredibly potent. It reads, "Good afternoon, Erica. All vendor bidding files for the upcoming medical equipment contracts are now sitting on your new desk at corporate. You have full executive authority to cancel any contract or reject any proposal that does not strictly meet our new security algorithm standards. We trust your judgment entirely. Welcome aboard." I read the message 3 times, letting the immense gravity of those words sink deep into my bones. Full executive authority to cancel any contract. My brother is inside that brick mansion right now, drinking expensive scotch and bragging to his wealthy friends about his upcoming presentation to Apex. He is throwing money at me and telling me to buy a balloon for my recovering child, entirely confident that his charm and aggressive sales tactics will secure his future. He thinks he is walking into a boardroom tomorrow to dazzle a group of disconnected executives. He has absolutely no idea that the final decision maker, the ultimate authority over his entire career trajectory, is the very same sister he just degraded in front of a room full of people. The power dynamic has completely inverted. For 34 years, my family held all the leverage. They used their financial stability as a weapon to force my compliance and punish my independence. They created a narrative where I was the perpetual failure and Jason was the undisputed king. Now, with a single signature on a digital contract, I hold the keys to their entire kingdom. I have the ability to systematically dismantle everything they have built, not with petty arguments or emotional outbursts, but with cold, hard data and absolute corporate authority. I look back up at the sprawling house. Through the front window, I clearly see silhouettes moving in the living room. They are still celebrating Jason's imaginary success. I let out a soft, genuine laugh that fills the small space of my car. It is a sound of pure, unadulterated freedom. I slide the key into the ignition and turn it. The engine roars to life. I pull away from the curb, leaving the wealthy suburb behind me forever. The long drive back to my own quiet neighborhood takes exactly 45 minutes, and every single mile feels like shedding a heavy, invisible weight. I navigate the familiar route to the modest townhome complex where I live. The outdated buildings are minimal, but it has been a safe haven for my daughter and me. I park in my assigned spot and walk up the short concrete path to my front door. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, waves at me from her porch. She has been keeping a very close eye on the place while we were stuck at the hospital. I wave back and unlock my door, stepping into the quiet comfort of my own space. The living room is small and cluttered with Lily's toys, but it feels incredibly warm and inviting after a week in the sterile hospital environment. I walk down the short hallway to check on Lily. My good friend Sarah generously offered to sit with her while I ran to my parents' house to get our clothes. Sarah is reading a book in the armchair, while Lily sleeps soundly in her bed. I thank Sarah profusely for her help and assure her that I am fine. After she leaves, I spend the rest of the evening simply sitting beside my daughter and watching her breathe. Her recovery over the next 2 weeks is slow but steady. The visiting nurses are amazed at how quickly her heart is healing. We establish a comfortable routine of medication, physical therapy, and quiet afternoons watching cartoons on the couch. For a brief period, my life feels perfectly serene. I work from my laptop while she naps, meticulously reviewing the vendor files that the Apex Health Network sent to my secure portal. I am building a comprehensive case against my brother Jason, documenting every single safety violation and price gouge in his massive proposal. The peace is shattered on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, exactly 14 days after Lily was discharged from the hospital. I walk out to the metal mailboxes at the end of our street, holding an umbrella against the cold drizzle. I unlock my box and pull out a stack of envelopes. Most of them are standard hospital bills and advertisements, but one envelope catches my attention immediately. It is a certified letter requiring a signature which the mail carrier had simply left a slip for the day before. The return address belongs to a property management firm that my parents use to handle their real estate portfolio. My parents own the townhome I live in through a corporate entity. I have always paid my rent on time every single month without fail. I tear open the thick envelope and unfold the legal document inside. The bold, black letters across the top of the page send a sharp jolt of adrenaline straight through my chest. It is a formal notice of eviction. I stand in the freezing rain and read the legal jargon carefully. The document states that the corporate ownership is liquidating the property immediately. Because I am on a month-to-month lease, the formal termination date is 30 days away, but a handwritten addendum demands that I surrender the keys voluntarily within 14 days so the family can promise early possession to a buyer. They are pressuring a recovering child out of her home in 2 weeks, even though the legal notice allows longer. The sheer cruelty of the document is breathtaking. I fold the paper and walk back to my townhome. My shoes squeak against the wet pavement. I am not even fully inside the front door when my cell phone begins to ring. The caller identification shows my mother, Barbara. I take off my wet coat, hang it on the hook, and answer the call. "Hello, Mom," I say, keeping my voice perfectly neutral. "Erica, darling," my mother begins, her voice dripping with an artificial, syrupy sweetness that instantly makes my skin crawl. "I assume you received the certified letter from the property management company today? I just wanted to call and explain the situation to you personally, so there are no hard feelings between us." I pull out a chair at my small kitchen table and sit down. "I received the eviction notice." "Yes," I reply simply. "Well, you see, Jason is in a very critical phase of his negotiations with the Apex Health executives," she explains, adopting a tone of fake sympathy. "He really needs to impress these billionaires to secure his massive contract. He decided that he needs to purchase a luxury vacation villa on Lake Geneva to entertain the hospital board members properly. It is a brilliant business strategy, really." I listen to her spin this ridiculous narrative. You are evicting your daughter and your granddaughter who just had open heart surgery so Jason can buy a lake house to throw parties, I ask, stating the facts plainly without raising my voice. My mother sighs heavily, expressing her manufactured exhaustion. "You always make everything sound so dramatic, Erica. The townhome is a corporate asset, and the family business needs liquid capital. Right now. Jason needs to close this deal quickly, so we are putting the townhome on the market this afternoon. The real estate agent says it will sell in a matter of days in this current market. We need you to clear out your belongings and vacate the property within 14 days so the buyers can take possession. I know the legal notice says 30 days, but we really need you to do this for the family. You understand, do you not?" I stare at the rain streaking down my kitchen window. She is asking me to voluntarily waive my legal rights and render my recovering child homeless in 2 weeks just to facilitate my brother's fraudulent sales pitch. The absolute disconnect from reality is staggering. What am I supposed to do with Lily? I ask, testing her response. She cannot be moved into a cheap motel right now. Her immune system is still incredibly fragile. My mother lets out a short, dismissive laugh. Oh, Erica, you are a smart girl. You will figure something out. You can stay at a shelter or find a cheap apartment in a different neighborhood. This is exactly why your father and I told you to stop relying on us. You need to learn how to be independent and solve your own problems. We simply cannot hold Jason's career back just because you refuse to get your life together. We expect the keys turned over to the property manager in exactly 14 days. She abruptly ends the call, without even saying a proper goodbye. The line goes dead, leaving me sitting in the quiet kitchen. I look at the eviction notice resting on the table. My mother believes she has just delivered a devastating blow. She thinks she has pushed me to the absolute brink of despair. She assumes I will spend the next 2 weeks crying, packing my meager belongings into cardboard boxes, and begging friends for a place to crash. She expects me to be completely crushed by their financial power. A slow, deliberate smile spreads across my face. I pick up my cell phone and open my contacts list. I scroll past the numbers for the hospital and the pharmacy until I find the private direct line from my executive asset manager. I tap the green call button on the clear screen and patiently wait for my executive asset manager to answer the secure line. The line clicks over after the second ring. A calm, professional voice greets me on the other end. Good afternoon, Erica. This is Harrison. How can I assist you today? I listen to the steady sound of his voice and feel a wave of intense focus settle into my bones. Harrison, I need to establish a blind trust immediately, I say, keeping my tone perfectly measured. I want this corporate entity set up by the end of the business day. It needs to be completely untraceable to my name or any of my known business accounts. I need absolute airtight anonymity. Harrison does not ask unnecessary questions. He simply types something on his keyboard and asks for the specific parameters. I explain the financial structure I want to use, drawing a small fraction of the capital from the recent Apex Health acquisition. We finalize the details of the blind trust in less than 15 minutes. Before we end the call, I give him one final instruction. I need you to assign a dedicated real estate broker to this trust, Harrison. There is a specific residential property hitting the local market this afternoon, and I intend to purchase it immediately. I hang up the phone and walk back into the living room. Lily is sitting on the rug playing quietly with her building blocks. I sit down on the sofa and open my laptop, pulling up the premier real estate listing website for our area. I type in my own home address and continuously refresh the page. I know my brother Jason well enough to know he does not waste time when he smells money. He is desperate to generate liquid capital, to fund his extravagant lifestyle, and impress the executives at Apex Health. Less than 2 hours later, the listing officially goes live. The photographs show the exterior of my modest townhome, and the description boasts about the great potential for investors. The asking price is surprisingly high, indicating that Jason and my parents are hoping to spark a bidding war. They are trying to squeeze every single dollar out of this property to finance their superficial ambitions. I immediately send the digital listing link to Harrison. My instructions to him are incredibly precise. I tell him to submit an all-cash offer through the newly established blind trust. I instruct him to offer exactly 20% over their exorbitant asking price. The only condition attached to our massive offer is that the sellers must accept the bid and sign the closing documents within 24 hours. I know exactly how my family operates when it comes to finances. They are driven entirely by greed and the desire for instant gratification. When they see a cash offer that completely shatters the market value of the property, they will not ask any questions. They will not care who the mysterious buyer behind the blind trust is. They will only see the massive influx of cash rushing into their bank accounts. The waiting game begins. I close my laptop and spend the rest of the evening focusing entirely on Lily. We read her favorite storybooks, and I make her a warm bowl of soup for dinner. I do not let a single ounce of anxiety seep into our quiet night. The next morning, I wake up and check my secure email portal. A message from Harrison is waiting for me at the very top of my inbox. The subject line reads, "Property acquisition successful." I open the email and read the brief confirmation. The sellers accepted our aggressive cash offer late last night. The funds have already been transferred from the blind trust, and the closing documents are currently being processed by the title company. The townhome officially belongs to the anonymous corporate entity that I completely control. I own the very roof over my head. My daughter and I will never be threatened with eviction again. Later that afternoon, my cell phone chimes with a notification from the family group chat. I have kept the chat unmuted simply to monitor their behavior. I open the application and see a barrage of celebratory messages. Jason has uploaded a photograph of himself and my parents clinking expensive champagne glasses at a high-end steakhouse downtown. The caption underneath the photo reads, "Closed, the easiest real estate deal of the century today." Some desperate corporate buyer just paid 20% over asking price in pure cash for the old townhome. The lake house is officially happening. My mother replies to his message with a string of celebratory emojis. She types, "You have such brilliant business instincts, Jason. Your father and I are so incredibly proud of your massive success. We always knew you had a genius mind for real estate investment." I read their arrogant messages, and a profound sense of satisfaction washes over my entire body. They are sitting in an overpriced restaurant, toasting their incredible financial prowess. They genuinely believe they have just executed a masterful stroke of real estate genius. They think they have successfully liquidated an inconvenient asset and discarded me in the process. They have absolutely no clue that the desperate corporate buyer they are currently mocking is the very same daughter they tried to render homeless. They do not realize that the massive influx of cash they are currently celebrating is merely a microscopic drop in the ocean of my newly acquired wealth. I just bought my own home out from under them, using a tiny fraction of the money I earned through my own intellect and hard work. I set my phone down on the kitchen counter and look around the small townhome. The walls that felt like a precarious rental yesterday now feel like a permanent fortress. I walk over to the window and look out at the quiet street. The rain has stopped, and a faint ray of sunlight is breaking through the heavy gray clouds. My family tried to use their financial leverage to break my spirit and force me into submission. Instead, they unwittingly facilitated my absolute security. They willingly handed over the deed to my home because their greed blinded them to everything else. I do not need to pack a single cardboard box. I do not need to scour the city for a cheap apartment or worry about disrupting Lily's fragile recovery process. We are staying exactly where we are. This small victory is just the beginning of my systematic dismantling of their false empire. I turn away from the window and walk back to my laptop. The real estate transaction was merely a warm-up exercise. The true reckoning awaits in the corporate files sitting on my secure server. I open the Apex Health vendor portal and pull up the proposal submitted by Jason's medical supply firm. I settle into my chair, allowing my analytical mind to take complete control. My brother has always relied on his superficial charm to secure business deals. He assumes that taking executives to expensive dinners will blind them to the actual details of his contracts. He is about to discover that data does not care about his tailored suits or his confident smile. I begin scrutinizing every single line of his proposal, comparing his equipment specifications against the rigorous new safety algorithms I designed specifically for the hospital network. It does not take long for the glaring discrepancies to immediately emerge. I highlight each and every one of them on screen in bright red ink. The sheer volume of the discrepancies is breathtaking. My brother has submitted a proposal to supply the Apex Health Network with a massive new fleet of pediatric cardiac monitors. These are the exact same types of machines that have been tracking my daughter's vital signs for the past 2 weeks. I cross-referenced the manufacturer's specifications, provided in Jason's proposal, against the Global Medical Safety Database using my proprietary predictive algorithm. The machine learning software instantly flags a massive history of critical hardware failures associated with this specific model. The manufacturer Jason selected uses incredibly cheap internal sensors that are notorious for dropping signals and triggering false alarms. In a busy intensive care unit, a dropped signal could easily cost a child their life. Jason is entirely aware of these safety flaws. I pull up the internal communication logs included in the required vendor disclosures. There are hidden emails between Jason and the overseas manufacturer explicitly discussing the high failure rate of the internal sensors. Instead of choosing a safer alternative, my brother negotiated a bulk discount on the defective monitors. He deliberately chose to sacrifice patient safety in order to artificially inflate his own profit margins. He is willing to put recovering children at risk so he can buy luxury items. I shift my focus to the financial pricing models attached to his proposal. The level of blatant price gouging is almost comical. He is attempting to sell these substandard cardiac monitors to Apex Health at a 300% markup. He buried the exorbitant fees by routing the transaction through 3 different shell distributors, effectively washing the origin of the equipment and masking the true manufacturing costs. He assumes that the hospital executives will merely glance at the final bottom line and approve the contract based on his charming sales pitch and expensive dinners. He relies on the fact that legacy healthcare systems rarely employ data scientists to thoroughly audit the technical supply chain. He never anticipated that the new vice president of procurement would be an expert algorithm developer who can instantly trace every single fraudulent penny. I compile the safety warnings, the hidden manufacturer communications, and the inflated pricing models into a single comprehensive digital report. I apply an official corporate rejection stamp to the cover page. The evidence is absolutely bulletproof. I have everything I need to completely destroy his career and protect the hospital network from his dangerous negligence. A soft sound breaks my concentration. I turn around and see Lily standing in the hallway, rubbing her sleepy eyes. She is clutching her favorite stuffed bear. I immediately close the laptop and hurry over to her. I scoop her up into my arms, being careful of her healing chest, and carry her back to the sofa. I wrap a warm blanket around us and simply hold her close to my heart. Feeling her steady heartbeat against my chest reinforces my absolute resolve. My brother watched his own niece fight for her life in a pediatric ward. He knows exactly how terrifying it is when a child requires critical medical intervention. Yet he is perfectly willing to compromise the safety of countless other children just so he can afford a lake house and a luxury sports car. He is not just arrogant and selfish, he is actively dangerous. The family that has spent my entire life lecturing me about responsibility and hard work is currently financing their extravagant lifestyle through systemic corporate fraud. They truly believe they are superior to me because they wear designer clothes and attend high society functions. They measure their worth by the brand of their car and the price of their wine. They discarded me because I did not fit their shallow definition of success. Now I hold the power to completely dismantle their false empire, and I will do it with the very analytical skills they mocked for years. As Lily drifts back to sleep in my arms, my cell phone vibrates on the coffee table. I reach out and grab the device. The screen illuminates with a flurry of new notifications from the family group chat. I open the application and find a lengthy message from Jason. He has sent a photograph of a massive, sleek white yacht docked in a pristine harbor. The text beneath the picture radiates pure, unadulterated arrogance. I am meeting the mysterious new Vice President of Procurement for Apex Health at the annual charity gala this weekend, he writes. I have the entire executive board eating out of the palm of my hand. The contract is as good as signed. I am going to buy this boat with the commission check next week. My mother immediately replies with a string of clapping emojis. She adds a message praising his success. You deserve every bit of this, Jason. Your father and I are already looking at lakefront properties to park the new boat. We are so incredibly proud of the legacy you are building for this family. You are a true visionary. My father chimes in a moment later. Make sure you wear the blue suit to the gala, Jason. You need to look sharp for these billionaires. Show them why you are the top salesman in the firm. We will be there to celebrate with you. I read their arrogant messages, and a profound sense of anticipation settles into my bones. They are dressing up for a charity gala, expecting to celebrate the culmination of Jason's deceitful career. They are actively planning to spend millions of dollars that they have not even secured yet. They assume the new vice president of procurement is just another gullible corporate suit waiting to be charmed by my brother's slick presentation. I look down at my phone screen and tap the reply box. I keep my message incredibly brief, allowing the silence to amplify the tension. I type out a single sentence. I cannot wait to see what you manage to accomplish. I press send and watch the message appear at the bottom of the chat thread. Jason replies a few minutes later with a simple thumbs up emoji, completely oblivious to the trap that has just snapped shut around him. He thinks I am expressing genuine sisterly support. He thinks I am sitting in my rented townhome, admiring his magnificent success from afar. No idea that the mysterious executive he is planning to impress is the very same woman he just told to buy a balloon with $100 bill. I lock my phone and set it down. The Apex Health Charity Gala is exactly 3 days away. I need to prepare. I carry Lily back to her bedroom, tucking her safely under the covers. I walk into my room and open my closet. For years, I have worn practical, muted clothing to fade into the background. I never wanted to draw attention to myself or invite my mother's harsh criticism. That era is officially over. If I am going to stand before the Apex Executive Board and dismantle my brother's career, I am going to look the part. I dial the number for a high-end personal stylist I researched earlier. I book an emergency appointment for the following morning. I intend to purchase a custom-tailored gown that projects absolute authority and uncompromising power. I want my family to see me standing under the bright lights of that ballroom and instantly realize that the balance of power has permanently shifted. The next 72 hours move with a quiet and deliberate rhythm. I spend my days working seamlessly from the kitchen table, coordinating my transition into the executive team at Apex Health. The corporate onboarding process is highly confidential, handled entirely through encrypted channels and private video calls with the chief executive officer. I familiarize myself with the organizational structure of the procurement division and review the existing vendor portfolios. Every evening is dedicated entirely to Lily. Her recovery continues to progress beautifully, and watching her regain her energy strengthens my resolve. I arrange for my close friend Sarah to spend Saturday evening at the townhome to watch over Lily, ensuring she is completely safe and comfortable while I attend the gala. Saturday arrives with a crisp chill in the evening air. The personal stylist I hired was worth every single penny. She arrived at my door with a garment bag containing a custom-tailored emerald green evening gown. The color is striking and unapologetic. The fabric drapes elegantly, projecting a sense of undeniable authority. I pair the dress with simple but elegant heels and pull my hair back into a sleek professional style. Looking in the mirror, I barely recognize the woman staring back at me. The exhausted, frightened mother who sat in the intensive care unit just a few weeks ago has completely vanished. In her place stands an executive who controls a $68 million empire. I grab my evening clutch, say goodnight to Lily and Sarah, and step out into the cool night air. The Apex Health Charity Gala is widely considered the most prestigious social event of the year in the greater Chicago area. It is held in the grand ballroom of a historic downtown hotel, a venue known for its sweeping architecture and opulent decor. As my private car pulls up to the valet stand, I can see the massive scale of the event. A red carpet leads up the wide stone steps, flanked by photographers and security personnel. Wealthy donors, hospital executives, and local politicians mingle under the warm glow of the exterior lighting. I step out of the car and the valet respectfully hands me a claim ticket. I walk up the steps with a measured pace, blending seamlessly into the crowd of elite attendees. Inside the grand foyer, the atmosphere is thick with the scent of expensive perfume and the sound of live classical music. Crystal chandeliers cast a brilliant light over the polished marble floors. Waiters in crisp black tuxedos circulate through the crowd, balancing silver trays loaded with champagne flutes and delicate hors d'oeuvres. I accept a glass of sparkling water and move toward the edge of the room, positioning myself near a massive marble pillar. From this vantage point, I have a clear and unobstructed view of the main entrance. I sip my water and wait patiently for my family to arrive. I do not have to wait long. Less than 20 minutes later, the heavy glass doors swing open and my family makes their grand entrance. They do not merely walk into the room, they announce their presence. My brother Jason strides through the doors first, with his chest puffed out and a smug smile plastered across his face. He is wearing a tailored tuxedo that looks entirely brand new. His wife Ashley clings to his arm, wearing an ostentatious diamond necklace and a designer gown that costs more than a reliable used car. Right behind them are my parents. My mother Barbara is draped in expensive fabrics, and her hair is styled with immaculate precision. My father Richard walks beside her, projecting an air of absolute superiority. They are dripping in newfound wealth, and every single item they are wearing was financed by the cash sale of my townhome. They literally evicted their own recovering granddaughter so they could purchase these clothes and attend this specific event. The sheer audacity of their performance is almost mesmerizing to watch. They pause near the entrance, allowing the professional photographers to take several pictures of their group. Jason adjusts his bow tie and flashes a blindingly white smile for the cameras, posing as if he is the guest of honor, rather than a lowly medical equipment vendor hoping to score a contract. They move away from the entrance and plunge directly into the crowd of wealthy attendees. I remain perfectly still in the shadow of the marble pillar, observing their behavior. They are incredibly loud and completely obnoxious. Jason immediately begins targeting older men in expensive suits, assuming they are hospital board members. He thrusts his hand out and introduces himself with an aggressive volume that forces people to turn and look at him. I can hear his voice carrying over the elegant string quartet playing in the background. He is actively name-dropping the few minor executives he has met in passing, desperately trying to inflate his own perceived importance. My mother is no better. She spots a group of well-dressed women standing near the champagne fountain and immediately inserts herself into their conversation. She laughs at a volume that is entirely inappropriate for the setting. I watch her subtly touch her new jewelry, making sure the other women notice the expensive pieces. She talks loudly about the luxury vacation property they are currently looking to purchase on Lake Geneva. She brags about my brother's brilliant business acumen, claiming that he is about to close a monumental deal that will revolutionize the entire medical supply industry. She does not know any of these women, but she is determined to make them believe she belongs in their elite social circle. Ashley stands beside Jason, acting as a human prop for his massive ego. She nods enthusiastically at every arrogant statement he makes and shoots condescending glances at the catering staff walking past their group. My father stands with a glass of expensive bourbon in his hand, puffing his chest out and offering unsolicited advice to anyone unfortunate enough to be trapped in a conversation with him. They are a collective embarrassment, but they are completely blind to the polite smiles and subtle eye rolls of the people they are interacting with. The wealthy donors and established hospital executives simply tolerate their boisterous behavior, viewing them as temporary nuisances. I watch Jason corner a man I recognize as the regional director of cardiology. Jason slaps the man on the back with false familiarity and immediately begins pitching his pediatric cardiac monitors. He talks fast and uses an endless string of meaningless corporate buzzwords. He claims his equipment is the absolute gold standard in the industry and guarantees it will save the hospital network millions in operational costs. The cardiology director tries to politely excuse himself, but Jason physically blocks his path, doubling down on his aggressive sales pitch. I stand silently by the marble pillar, taking in every single detail of their performance. The anger that I expected to feel is completely absent. I do not feel hurt by their display of stolen wealth. I do not feel intimidated by their loud voices or their arrogant posturing. I merely feel a deep, profound sense of clinical detachment. They are a case study in toxic narcissism, playing out their final scene before the curtain drops permanently. The catering staff begins gently directing the guests to find their assigned tables. The time for observation is officially over. It is time to step out of the shadows and face them directly. I step out from the shadows of the massive marble pillar and walk directly into the warm glow of the crystal chandeliers. The custom-tailored emerald evening gown moves flawlessly, with my body brushing softly against the polished floor. Tonight, I am deliberately commanding the space around me. I keep my posture perfectly straight and my gaze fixed forward. As I navigate through the sea of wealthy donors and hospital administrators, I notice several people turning their heads to look at me. It is a look of genuine curiosity and respect. The emerald fabric catches the light beautifully, projecting an aura of quiet, uncompromising power. I let the confidence I have built over the past few weeks radiate outward. I stop near the edge of the central dining area, where the main thoroughfare of the ballroom meets the VIP seating section. I wait for the inevitable collision. It takes less than 2 minutes for the illusion of their perfect evening to shatter. Ashley is the first one to spot me. She is standing next to Jason, holding a half-empty glass of champagne and laughing at something a nearby executive just said. Her eyes sweep casually across the crowd and suddenly lock onto my face. The laugh dies in her throat instantly. Her jaw drops slightly, and I can see the sheer confusion registering in her eyes. She blinks twice, as if she cannot believe the woman standing in the stunning designer gown is the same sister-in-law she just mocked in a cramped suburban entryway. She reaches out and frantically taps Jason's arm, interrupting his sales pitch. Jason turns his head, annoyed by the interruption, but Ashley simply points a manicured finger in my direction. Jason's eyes follow her gesture, and his reaction is incredibly satisfying to witness. The smug, arrogant smile he has been wearing all evening completely vanishes. His face pales for a fraction of a second before twisting into a mask of pure, unadulterated fury. He mutters something under his breath and immediately taps my mother on the shoulder. Barbara turns around, smoothing the front of her expensive dress. When she sees me standing there, looking completely at ease among the city's elite, her entire demeanor shifts. The elegant, sophisticated persona she has been desperately trying to project to these billionaires evaporates in an instant. Her shoulders tense, and her eyes narrow into dangerous little slits. I can practically see the panic setting in. They are absolutely terrified that my presence here is going to ruin the elaborate facade they have constructed. Barbara does not hesitate. She hands her champagne glass to my father without a single word and begins marching aggressively across the ballroom floor. She moves with a stiff, furious determination, completely ignoring the polite social boundaries of the event. She bumps shoulders with the hospital administrator without offering an apology, keeping her furious gaze locked entirely on me. I stand my ground and wait for the impact. I do not cross my arms or display any defensive body language. I simply watch her approach with the clinical detachment of a scientist observing a predictable experiment. She comes to a halt just inches away from my face, invading my personal space in an attempt to physically intimidate me. "What on earth do you think you are doing here?" She hisses, her voice dropping to a harsh, venomous whisper. Her eyes dart frantically around us, ensuring that none of the important executives are within earshot. "You do not belong here, Erica. How did you even get past the front security desk?" I look down at her, taking in the panicked tightness around her mouth. "I'm attending the charity gala, Barbara," I reply, my voice perfectly smooth and conversational. "The same as everyone else in this room." My mother lets out a short, bitter breath. "Do not play games with me," she snaps, leaning in closer. Her expensive perfume is suffocating. "Did you sneak in through the service entrance to beg Jason's clients for a job? Is that what this is? Are you trying to trap one of these wealthy doctors into feeling sorry for you? You are going to ruin the most important night of your brother's life with your pathetic desperation. I want you to turn around, walk out those doors, and get out of this hotel before you embarrass this entire family." Before I can formulate a response, Jason arrives at her side. He has abandoned his conversation with the cardiology director to deal with what he views as a massive threat to his reputation. He steps slightly in front of my mother, using his height to try and tower over me. The veins in his neck are visibly bulging against the collar of his new tuxedo. "Are you completely out of your mind?" he demands, his voice tight with suppressed rage. He points a finger directly at my chest. "We explicitly told you to handle your own mess. You do not get to stalk me at a corporate event just because you are broke and desperate. You look absolutely ridiculous playing dress-up in whatever knockoff gown you managed to rent for the night." I look at his pointing finger and feel absolutely nothing. The brother who used to terrify me with his explosive temper now looks like a frightened child throwing a tantrum. "I am not looking for a job, Jason," I say calmly, keeping my voice low so only they can hear me. "And I am certainly not here to beg you for anything." Jason scoffs, crossing his arms over his chest. He leans in close, his breath smelling heavily of expensive scotch. "Listen to me carefully, you mentally unstable loser," he whispers, his words dripping with pure malice. "I have the entire Apex Executive Board sitting in the palm of my hand tonight. I'm about to close a deal that will make me more money in 1 year than you will see in your entire pathetic lifetime. I will not let you ruin my success because you are jealous. If you do not turn around and walk out of this building right now, I am going to flag down the event security. I will tell them you are a disturbed stalker who crashed a private event. I will have you physically dragged out of this lobby and thrown onto the street. Do you understand me?" I hold his furious gaze without blinking. For 34 years, this exact tactic worked perfectly. Whenever I showed independence, they would use verbal abuse and intimidation to force me back into submission. They relied on my fear of public confrontation to keep me quiet. They assume that because I have always backed down to keep the peace, I will inevitably back down now. "Are you going to call security, Jason?" I ask, tilting my head slightly. I keep my tone perfectly even, betraying no emotion whatsoever. "Are you going to cause a massive public scene right in front of the hospital board members you are so desperate to impress?" His jaw tightens and he takes a sudden step forward. "Do not test me, Erica," he threatens, his voice trembling with barely contained fury. "You have absolutely no money, no power, and no influence here. You are a complete nobody. I will have you humiliated in front of everyone. Get out." I do not move a single inch backward. The absolute certainty radiating from my posture seems to confuse them completely. For a fraction of a second, my brother actually falters. His hand drops slightly to his side, and he exchanges a rapid, nervous glance with my mother. They are completely unaccustomed to me pushing back against their intimidation tactics, especially in a public setting. Jason opens his mouth to speak, but he cannot seem to formulate a coherent threat. The loud, confident salesman who was just bragging to hospital executives is suddenly struggling to find his words. Barbara steps forward again, attempting to physically grab my arm to pull me toward the exit. I anticipate the movement and smoothly pivot out of her reach. My movements are fluid and calm, leaving her grasping at empty air. "Do not ever try to put your hands on me again, Barbara," I state, my voice barely above a whisper, but carrying a razor-sharp edge that makes her physically recoil. Jason finally regains his composure, and his face flushes a deep, angry red. "Fine," he spits out, taking a step back and raising his hand in the air. "Have it your way, Erica." He snaps his fingers to catch the attention of a large security guard stationed near the heavy oak doors of the ballroom. The guard notices the gesture and immediately begins walking toward our location. Jason turns back to me with a look of pure malicious triumph. "I tried to do this quietly to save you the embarrassment," he lies smoothly, already adopting the fake, sympathetic tone he plans to use with the security team. "But you leave me absolutely no choice. You are about to be escorted out of here, in front of everyone." I do not run. I do not panic. I simply stand tall in my emerald gown and wait. The security guard navigates his way through the dense crowd of wealthy donors, approaching our tense little circle with a cautious expression. Before Jason can even open his mouth to deliver his fabricated story about a disturbed, trespassing sister, the ambient lighting in the massive ballroom suddenly begins to dim. The crystal chandeliers overhead lower their brilliant glow, casting the room into a hushed, theatrical twilight. The classical string quartet playing in the far corner abruptly finishes their current piece and sets their instruments down. A single bright spotlight pierces through the dimness, illuminating the large, elevated stage at the very front of the ballroom. The sudden shift in the atmosphere causes the entire crowd to fall silent. A tall, distinguished man in a dark tailored tuxedo steps out from behind the velvet curtains and walks confidently toward the solitary microphone stand in the center of the stage. He is David Caldwell, the Chief Executive Officer of the Apex Health Network. The room erupts into polite applause. Jason immediately abandons his interaction with the approaching security guard. His eyes lock onto the stage with intense, greedy focus. He turns to my mother and whispers excitedly that Caldwell is the exact man who holds the keys to his multi-million-dollar commission. Jason glances back at me and sneers. "You are incredibly lucky the program is starting," he mutters under his breath. "Do not move a single inch. I will have you thrown out the second this speech is over." I ignore his hollow threat and turn my attention to the stage. David Caldwell taps the microphone lightly, causing a soft thud to echo across the silent ballroom. "Good evening, everyone," Caldwell begins, his voice deep and resonant, projecting effortlessly through the high-end sound system. "I want to thank you all for joining us tonight to support the Apex Health Charity Foundation. Your generous contributions allow us to provide critical medical care to underserved pediatric patients across the entire region." The crowd offers another round of warm applause. I watch my mother nod along, pretending to care deeply about pediatric health, while actively forgetting that she just evicted her own recovering granddaughter 14 days ago. Caldwell rests his hands on the sides of the wooden podium, and his expression turns serious. As we look toward the future of healthcare at Apex, we recognize that providing top-tier medical care requires operational excellence behind the scenes. For years, legacy healthcare systems have struggled with massive inefficiencies, hidden costs, and frankly, severe vendor compliance issues. We have historically lacked the technological infrastructure to properly audit the safety and financial integrity of the medical equipment we purchase. Jason nods enthusiastically at this statement, completely oblivious to the massive trap waiting for him. He leans over and whispers to his wife Ashley that Caldwell is setting up the perfect transition for his sales pitch tomorrow. But that outdated system ends tonight, Caldwell continues, his voice rising with palpable excitement. I am incredibly proud to announce to our top donors and executive staff that earlier this month, the Apex Health Network finalized the most significant technological acquisition in our corporate history. We have successfully purchased a revolutionary machine learning and data analytics platform for $68 million. A collective gasp of genuine surprise and awe ripples through the wealthy crowd. My father, Richard, widens his eyes at the astronomical figure, shifting his weight nervously from one foot to the other. This proprietary software platform will completely overhaul our entire procurement division, Caldwell explains, gesturing expansively to the crowd. It utilizes advanced predictive algorithms to instantly identify safety flaws and expose price gouging within our supply chain. It will save our hospital network hundreds of millions of dollars while protecting our most vulnerable patients from substandard medical devices. Furthermore, we did not just acquire this incredible software. We also acquired the brilliant mind who designed and built it entirely from scratch. We have appointed the founder of this platform to join our executive board as the new Vice President of Technology and Procurement. She now holds absolute executive authority over every single vendor contract in our system. Jason is practically vibrating with anticipation. He adjusts his tuxedo jacket and runs a hand through his hair, preparing to network with this new, mysterious executive the moment the speech concludes. He truly believes this woman is going to hand him a massive contract and secure his legacy forever. It is my profound honor to introduce her to you tonight, Caldwell says, taking a step back from the podium and extending his arm toward the crowd. Please join me in giving a very warm welcome to our newest Executive Vice President, Erica. The name hangs in the air for a fraction of a second before the primary spotlight violently swings across the expansive ballroom. The bright, blinding beam of white light cuts through the darkness and lands perfectly on my location. It illuminates my custom emerald gown, making the fabric shimmer brilliantly against the shadows. I am standing dead center in the beam of light. The reaction from my family is absolute, pure, cinematic perfection. The blood drains completely from Jason's face, leaving his skin the color of dirty chalk. The arrogant smirk he has worn for 36 years is entirely wiped out of existence, replaced by a look of unadulterated terror. My mother Barbara turns completely rigid. Her polished exterior shatters into a million pieces. The crystal champagne flute she has been gripping slips through her limp fingers. It hits the solid marble floor, shattering violently and sending sharp, glittering shards across the stone. I step around the broken glass and gracefully glide across the ballroom. I climb the stage and accept the microphone. The heavy metal of the microphone feels cool and grounding against the palm of my hand. I stand at the very center of the elevated stage, looking out over the massive ballroom. The brilliant white spotlight follows my every movement, casting long, dramatic shadows against the velvet curtains behind me. I take a slow, deliberate breath and let the absolute silence of the room wash over me. Hundreds of the most influential hospital administrators, wealthy donors, and corporate executives in the city are staring up at me with rapt attention. They are waiting for me to speak. For 34 years, I have been conditioned to make myself as small and invisible as possible. I was taught that my voice did not matter, and that my presence was merely a burden to the people who were supposed to love me. Standing on this stage tonight, I am finally taking up the space I deserve. I look out at the sea of elegant faces and allow a warm, confident smile to spread across my lips. Good evening, everyone, I say, my voice projecting clearly and powerfully through the state-of-the-art sound system. My name is Erica, and it is my profound honor to stand before you tonight as the new Vice President of Technology and Procurement for the Apex Health Network. A fresh wave of polite, respectful applause ripples through the grand ballroom. I wait for the clapping to subside before I continue. When I first began developing the predictive analytics platform that brought us all together this evening, I was not thinking about corporate acquisitions or executive titles. I was thinking about survival. I was thinking about the incredibly fragile line between life and death in a pediatric intensive care unit. As a mother, I have spent countless agonizing hours sitting in stiff plastic hospital chairs watching medical monitors track the heartbeat of someone I love more than life itself. I know exactly what it feels like to place your absolute trust in the equipment and the professionals surrounding your child. That profoundly vulnerable experience fundamentally changed the way I view healthcare technology. It taught me that the data flowing through our hospital networks is never just a collection of abstract numbers on a screen. Every single data point represents a human life. It represents a terrified parent praying for a miracle in a sterile waiting room. It represents a patient depending on us to provide the highest possible standard of care without compromise and without exception. I pause for a moment, allowing the emotional weight of my words to settle over the audience. The ballroom is so incredibly quiet that I can hear the faint hum of the stage lighting above my head. The wealthy executives and donors are completely captivated. Many of them are nodding in solemn agreement. They have built their careers on profit margins and expansion strategies, but my message is reminding them of the fundamental human element at the core of their industry. I let my gaze slowly sweep across the expansive room until my eyes find the exact table where my family is seated. The contrast between the respectful engagement of the crowd and the sheer, unadulterated panic radiating from my parents and my brother is absolutely staggering. Jason is sitting rigidly in his chair, looking as though all the air has been violently sucked out of his lungs. His expensive tailored tuxedo suddenly looks like a poorly fitted costume. The aggressive, arrogant salesman who threatened to have me thrown onto the street just 10 minutes ago is now sweating profusely under the dim ballroom lighting. He is staring up at me with wide, terrified eyes, finally realizing the monumental scale of his catastrophic miscalculation. My mother, Barbara, is no longer pretending to be a sophisticated socialite. She is staring blankly at the shattered remains of her champagne glass on the marble floor, completely incapable of processing the reality unfolding in front of her. The elaborate fictional narrative she has spun for decades about her wildly successful son and her pathetic failure of a daughter has just been incinerated, live on stage. My father, Richard, sits rigidly beside her, gripping the edge of the table with white knuckles. He is a man who has always worshipped wealth and corporate power above all else. He is currently watching his discarded daughter command a room full of the exact billionaires he desperately wishes to impress. I hold their terrified collective gaze for a long, deliberate moment, ensuring they understand that I see their fear, and I feel absolutely no pity for them. I turn my attention back to the broader audience and grip the microphone a little tighter. Because I understand the profound human cost of medical errors, I designed my analytics platform to be completely uncompromising. I continue, my voice ringing with absolute authority. For too long, legacy healthcare systems have relied on outdated procurement methods that prioritize aggressive sales tactics and superficial relationships over empirical safety data. We have allowed slick presentations and expensive corporate dinners to obscure the critical technical specifications of the life-saving equipment we purchase. We have tolerated a culture where vendor accountability is treated as a mere suggestion rather than an absolute requirement. But I am standing here tonight to promise you that this outdated era of complacency is officially over. As the new Vice President of Procurement for the Apex Health Network, I am implementing a comprehensive systemic overhaul of our entire supply chain. From this moment forward, every single vendor who wishes to do business with our hospital network will be subjected to the most rigorous ethical and technical auditing processes in the entire medical industry. We will no longer accept empty promises or charming reassurances. We will demand verifiable, flawless data. We will analyze the historical failure rates of every single internal sensor and microchip before we ever allow a piece of equipment to enter our intensive care units. If a vendor attempts to hide a safety defect to protect their profit margins, our predictive algorithms will instantly expose their deception. If a supplier attempts to artificially inflate their pricing models through shell distributors and hidden fees, our analytics will trace every single fraudulent penny back to its source. We will demand absolute transparency and unwavering integrity from anyone who seeks to profit from the care of our patients. I take a slow, deliberate step toward the very edge of the stage, closing the physical distance between myself and the audience. I lower my voice slightly, forcing everyone in the massive ballroom to lean in and listen closely. I lock my eyes directly onto my older brother Jason as he sits rigidly in his assigned chair at the family table. He flinches visibly under my intensely focused stare, but he is completely paralyzed by his own mounting terror and utter disbelief. At Apex, we force our vendors to comply with the strictest ethical and technical standards. I state clearly, articulating every single syllable with deadly precision. We do not tolerate sheer negligence, and we certainly do not tolerate blind greed disguised as modern medical innovation. In fact, just this morning, I had the distinct honor of personally reviewing a massive equipment supply contract submitted by a vendor who clearly believed he could bypass our new safety protocols. I paused, letting the silence stretch tightly across the room as I watched the last remaining shred of hope completely drain from my brother's pale, sweating face. I lower the microphone from my face and hand it to a waiting stage manager. The bright spotlight clicks off, and the normal, warm lighting of the grand ballroom fades back up. The absolute silence in the room remains unbroken. I step carefully down the short flight of carpeted stairs leading off the main stage. The heavy fabric of my emerald gown brushes against my ankles. As my shoes touch the marble floor, David Caldwell steps into place right beside me. 3 other senior executives from the Apex Health Network seamlessly fall into step right behind us. They move with me like a highly coordinated corporate phalanx. We begin walking deliberately across the ballroom floor. The wealthy donors and hospital administrators physically part to make way for us. They step back, creating a wide, clear path directly toward the table where my family is sitting. Every single eye in the massive room is tracking my movement. I keep my posture perfectly straight and my gaze locked firmly on my brother. Jason is standing now. He is gripping the back of his chair so tightly that his knuckles are stark white against his skin. As I close the final few feet between us, Jason attempts to execute the most desperate psychological pivot I have ever witnessed in my life. He forces a painfully rigid smile onto his pale, sweating face. He lets go of the chair and steps out from behind the table. He attempts to play the role of the incredibly proud older brother in front of the watching executives. "Erica," he stammers, his voice cracking slightly on the first syllable. "My goodness, what an absolute surprise! Mom and Dad and I had absolutely no idea you were working on something like this. We are so incredibly proud of you." He takes another step forward and actually raises his arms as if he intends to pull me into a warm, familial embrace. I do not flinch or step away. I simply stop walking and fix him with a look of such absolute freezing disgust that his arms drop limply back to his sides. The fake smile trembles and collapses completely off his face. Ashley is sitting frozen in her chair, staring up at me with her mouth slightly open. My mother, Barbara, is hyperventilating quietly beside her. My father, Richard, refuses to make eye contact, staring fixedly at the center of the table. I do not offer a polite greeting. I do not acknowledge his pathetic attempt to play the supportive sibling. I reach out and accept a thick, heavy manila folder from the executive assistant standing just behind David Caldwell. I hold the file up for a brief moment, ensuring Jason recognizes exactly what it is. It is the complete master copy of his vendor proposal. I toss the thick file directly onto the center of their table. The heavy stack of papers lands with a loud, definitive smack against the wood. Printed across the very front of the cover page in massive, bright red ink is the word, rejected. Jason stares down at the red letters and swallows hard. Your equipment failed our safety analytics, Jason. I state my voice, carrying clearly through the quiet ballroom. Every single executive at the surrounding tables can hear exactly what I am saying. You submitted a massive proposal to supply our pediatric intensive care units with cardiac monitors that have a thoroughly documented history of catastrophic sensor failures. You deliberately chose a manufacturer known for cutting corners because they offered you a bulk discount. You knowingly attempted to sell us machines that drop vital signs and trigger false alarms. Jason opens his mouth to defend himself, but I do not give him the opportunity to speak. I take a step closer to the table and raise my voice slightly. Furthermore, I continue, you attempted to mask your exorbitant profit margins by routing the transaction through 3 different shell distributors. You tried to sell this substandard, dangerous equipment to our hospital network at a 300% markup. You were perfectly willing to put recovering children at risk just to maximize your personal commission check. The silence in the ballroom is instantly replaced by a low, shocked murmur from the surrounding guests. Several doctors and hospital administrators standing nearby glare at Jason with outright revulsion. Jason starts shaking his head frantically. "Erica, please," he whispers, his voice thick with panic. "You have this all wrong. The data must be flawed. I can explain the pricing models. We can go into a private room and negotiate this. We are family. You cannot just cancel a contract of this magnitude without a formal review." I look down at him and feel a profound sense of satisfaction. "The formal review is officially complete," I reply coldly. "As the Vice President of Procurement, I am exercising my executive authority right now. Your contract is permanently canceled, and your entire medical supply firm is officially blacklisted from the Apex Health Network." My mother lets out a sharp, horrified gasp. She reaches out and grabs my father's arm violently, shaking him as if demanding he fix this situation immediately. But my father remains completely silent, entirely paralyzed by the sheer magnitude of the public humiliation. Before Jason can attempt to beg for a second chance, a tall, older man steps forward from an adjacent VIP table. I instantly recognize him from my corporate research. He is Mr. Henderson, the Chief Executive Officer of the very medical supply firm that currently employs my brother. Mr. Henderson looks absolutely livid. The muscles in his jaw are twitching as he stops right next to Jason. He has just witnessed his lead sales executive get publicly exposed for attempting to defraud the largest hospital network in the region. He has just watched his company get permanently blacklisted from their most lucrative potential client. Jason turns and sees his boss standing there. "Mr. Henderson," Jason stammers, taking a quick step backward. "Sir, I promise you I can fix this. She is my sister. We just have a personal misunderstanding." Mr. Henderson does not even bother to lower his voice. He speaks with a booming, furious authority that echoes across the entire room. There is absolutely nothing to fix, Jason, he growls, pointing a sharp finger at my brother. You deliberately hid safety data from our internal review board to push this specific manufacturer. You told me you had this hospital network locked down. Instead, you just destroyed our corporate reputation in front of every major medical director in the city because of your blinding arrogance and pure greed. Jason raises his hands in a desperate, pleading gesture. Please, sir, he begs, his voice cracking. Just give me a chance to restructure the proposal. I can salvage the relationship. I know these executives. Mr. Henderson shakes his head in absolute disgust. You do not know anyone here, he states bluntly. And you certainly do not work for me anymore. You are fired, Jason. Effective immediately. Do not ever step foot inside my corporate offices again. I will have security pack up your desk and mail your belongings to whatever is left of your miserable life. Mr. Henderson turns on his heel and marches out of the ballroom without looking back. My brother stands perfectly still, watching his entire career completely evaporate right before his eyes. Ashley takes one long look at her husband and immediately drops his arm, stepping far away in sheer humiliation. The heavy silence that follows Mr. Henderson out of the grand ballroom feels as though oxygen has been violently pulled from the room. My brother Jason remains completely frozen in place, staring blankly at the empty space where his former boss just stood. His shoulders are slumped, and his breathing is rapid. The reality of his catastrophic downfall is crashing down on him with the force of a freight train. He has just lost his prestigious job, his massive commission, and his entire professional reputation in a matter of seconds. Ashley takes a few more steps backward, putting as much physical distance between herself and her husband as possible. She looks at him with a mixture of absolute disgust and profound embarrassment. Without saying a single word of comfort to the man she married, she turns and quickly disappears into the crowd of wealthy donors, desperately trying to distance herself from the radioactive fallout of his public humiliation. My father, Richard, simply sinks slowly back into his chair. He looks like a deflated balloon staring down at the pristine white tablecloth as if wishing it would swallow him whole. My mother, Barbara, however, refuses to accept defeat. The loss of her son's income means the loss of her own extravagant lifestyle, and she is not going to let it slip away without a fight. She frantically looks around the room, realizing that dozens of hospital executives and high society socialites have witnessed this entire exchange. Her face contorts into a mask of pure, desperate panic. She immediately shifts into her most familiar and heavily practiced role. She becomes the ultimate victim. She lets out a loud, theatrical sob that is specifically designed to garner sympathy from the onlookers. She steps around the table and lunges toward me, grabbing my forearm with trembling fingers. "Erica!" she wails, her voice cracking with manufactured grief. "How could you possibly do something so incredibly cruel to your own flesh and blood? Look at your brother. Look at what you have done to him. We are a family, Erica. We are supposed to protect each other and lift each other up. How can you be so entirely heartless to the people who raised you?" I look down at her manicured hand gripping the emerald green silk of my gown. The sheer audacity of her gaslighting is truly a marvel to witness. She is standing in a room full of millionaires wearing a designer dress that she purchased by evicting her own recovering granddaughter, and she has the nerve to call me heartless? I do not raise my voice, and I do not pull my arm away defensively. I simply look directly into her panic-stricken eyes with a gaze so cold and unyielding that she slowly releases her grip and takes a hesitant step backward. Her fake tears instantly falter under the weight of my absolute indifference. "You do not get to use the word family tonight, Barbara," I state clearly, keeping my tone perfectly level and completely devoid of any emotional warmth. "Family is a title you earn through loyalty and compassion. It is not a weapon you get to wield only when you are suddenly terrified of losing your social status and your bank accounts. I reach into the small matching evening clutch I have been holding in my left hand. My fingers brush past my lip gloss and my car keys until they find the exact item I am looking for. I slowly pull out the crisp $100 bill that Jason threw at my feet in their sunken living room 2 weeks ago. The bright green currency looks entirely out of place in the opulent ballroom, but it is the perfect physical manifestation of their arrogance. I hold the bill up between my index finger and thumb, allowing them to clearly see what it is before I lower my hand. I place the money directly in the center of their table, resting it neatly right on top of the rejected vendor proposal I threw down earlier. I smooth out the slight crease in the center of the bill with slow, deliberate precision. Jason stares down at the money, and a fresh wave of nausea seems to wash over his pale face as he recognizes exactly what I am returning to him. "You explicitly told me to handle my own problems, Barbara," I continue, my voice ringing out clearly over the hushed whispers of the surrounding crowd. "While I sat in a freezing intensive care unit watching my 5-year-old daughter fight for every single breath after open-heart surgery, you texted me to stop making her survival your problem. You told me that you were far too busy attending a wine tasting to care if my child lived or died. You told me that I needed to stand on my own 2 feet and stop expecting you to bail me out of my struggles." I look from my mother to my brother, ensuring they both absorb the full impact of my words. "I took your advice to heart. I handled my problems entirely on my own. I built a predictive analytics platform that just sold for $68 million. I secured a position that gives me absolute authority over your entire industry. I did exactly what you asked me to do." My mother opens her mouth to speak, but she cannot seem to find enough air to form a coherent sentence. She shakes her head weakly, desperately trying to process the magnitude of the wealth and power I am casually describing. My father finally looks up from the table, his eyes wide, with a sudden, sickening realization. The pieces of the puzzle are finally clicking together in his mind. He realizes that the struggling single mother they have been mocking for years is actually the brilliant mind behind the most significant technological acquisition in the history of the regional healthcare system. The regret flashing across his aging face is not rooted in guilt for how he treated me. It is rooted entirely in the devastating knowledge that he has permanently alienated a daughter who possesses more wealth and influence than he could ever dream of achieving. Oh, and there is one more thing I add, allowing a small, genuinely amused smile to touch the corners of my mouth. I really must thank you both for your brilliant business instincts regarding real estate. I want to sincerely thank you for selling my rented townhome so incredibly quickly last week." Barbara blinks in utter confusion, her brow furrowing deeply. "What are you talking about?" she whispers, her voice barely audible over the ambient noise of the ballroom. "What does the townhome have to do with anything? You evicted my recovering child with only 14 days of notice so Jason could buy a luxury vacation villa to entertain these exact hospital executives I explain, gesturing to the shocked doctors standing nearby. You bragged on the family group chat about how you masterfully fleeced some desperate corporate buyer who offered 20% over your asking price in pure cash. That anonymous blind trust you were so incredibly proud of swindling Barbara. That was my trust. I am the desperate corporate buyer who purchased the property." I turn away from their table and walk out of the grand ballroom. They sit frozen amid the broken glass, completely ruined by their own blinding greed, while I, finally, step into my bright, beautiful new life. I make it only 3 steps away from the table before my father finally finds his voice. "Erica, wait!" he calls, pushing his chair back so violently that it scrapes across the marble floor. The sound turns several heads. He hurries after me, with Barbara close behind, both of them suddenly unconcerned about the dignified image they were trying to project. Richard catches up near the edge of the ballroom and lowers his voice. "You cannot walk away after doing this," he says. "Whatever money you received does not erase your obligations to this family. Your grandfather created that trust because he expected loyalty. We managed it for you all these years. You owe us the chance to fix this." The word managed lands differently now. I turn and look directly at him. For years, Richard refused every request for a statement showing the balance of my trust. He claimed the investments were too complicated and the records were private. Tonight, after learning that I possess $68 million, he is suddenly eager to discuss my inheritance. Before I can answer, a woman in a charcoal suit steps away from a nearby group of attorneys and hospital trustees. Her name is Helen Ward, my lead litigation counsel. She has attended the gala at my request because the forensic review of Grandfather Henry's trust was completed that afternoon. Helen stops beside me and opens a slim leather portfolio. "Richard," she says, with calm precision, "I represent Erica in matters concerning the Henry Caldwell Family Trust. This is formal notice of a civil action for breach of fiduciary duty, fraudulent accounting, conversion of trust assets, and concealment of beneficiary records." She places a thick packet into his hands. His face changes as he reads the first page. The forensic accountants traced years of unauthorized transfers from my beneficiary account into family investment vehicles controlled by him and Barbara. Several payments were then routed to businesses associated with Jason. The emergency medical clause they claimed could not be used had been invoked repeatedly for Jason's expenses, including a luxury vehicle deposit, corporate entertainment, and renovations to my parents' house. Barbara grabs Richard's sleeve. "Tell her this is a misunderstanding," she whispers. Helen continues before he can respond. "Preservation notices have already been delivered to the banks, the property company, and the trust administrator. No records may be destroyed or altered. Because the review identified tax reporting discrepancies, Council has also referred the relevant documentation to the appropriate federal and state authorities. This is not a threat made in a ballroom. It is a filed case supported by bank record signatures and transaction histories." Richard looks at me as though I have betrayed him. "We raised you," he says. I hold his gaze. "You controlled money that belonged to me, refused medical assistance allowed by the trust, and used those funds to finance the son you preferred. Raising a child does not create a lifetime license to steal from her." Helen hands him a card containing instructions for future communication through Council. Barbara begins to cry again, but no one nearby mistakes the tears for innocence now. David Caldwell joins us before Richard can accuse me of using Apex as a personal weapon. He explains that the vendor rejection was independently reviewed by the chief medical officer, the compliance department, and outside biomedical engineers before the gala. My relationship to Jason was disclosed in writing, and I recused myself from the final employment decision made by his own company. The data, not our family history, condemned the contract. That distinction matters to me. I want Richard to understand that I did not manufacture a scandal to punish his favorite child. Jason created the safety failures, hid the correspondence, and submitted the inflated pricing. I merely refused to protect him from the evidence. I leave the hotel with Helen and David Caldwell. At exactly 11 o'clock that night, the lead story on a Chicago local news broadcast covers Apex Health's $68 million technology acquisition. The report includes footage from the gala, my appointment as vice president, and a statement confirming that a major vendor proposal involving unsafe pediatric cardiac monitors was rejected after the new analytics system detected hidden failure data and extreme price inflation. The station does not name every person under review, but it identifies Jason's firm and reports that its lead sales executive was dismissed during the event. Later, Sarah sends me a recording captured from the television. In the background of the clip, A mutual family acquaintance has filmed my parents and Jason watching the report in the hotel lounge. Richard lets his wine glass slip against the table. Jason drops his tumbler completely when my face appears beside the Apex logo. Barbara stares at the screen with both hands over her mouth. The promise hidden in my quiet message from the ICU has finally reached them. I said it was perfectly fine, because I knew their cruelty would no longer control the outcome. The days that follow are not dramatic in the way my family expects. There are no secret negotiations and no private deal that restores their status. There are only consequences. Apex formally blacklists Jason's firm pending an independent compliance audit. Other hospital systems request the same safety data, and several suspend negotiations. Without his salary or expected commission, Jason cannot maintain the sports car club memberships and lake property deposit he financed with debt. Ashley files for divorce within 3 weeks and asks the court to separate her finances from his liabilities. Creditors react faster than any of them expect. The lender financing Jason's sports car demands updated employment information and repossesses it when he misses the first payment. The deposit on the Lake Geneva property is forfeited because he cannot complete the purchase. Invitations to industry events vanish, and former contacts stop returning his calls once the compliance report circulates. Barbara tries to preserve appearances by hosting one final luncheon, but most of her guests decline. Richard attempts to borrow against the mansion and discovers that the trust lawsuit and tax examination have made every bank cautious. Their social empire does not collapse because of one speech. It collapses because nearly every impressive thing they displayed was financed by debt-concealed transfers or the expectation that Jason would always be rescued. Ashley moves out before the first week ends. Her attorney requests copies of every joint account and discovers that Jason used personal credit to finance client entertainment he claimed the company would reimburse. The divorce petition lists hidden debt and financial misrepresentation. Jason calls the filing betrayal, but Ashley tells him she married the future partner he pretended to be, not the unemployed defendant exposed in a ballroom. Her departure removes the last person willing to help him maintain the image of success. The trust litigation moves quickly because the records are clear. Richard and Barbara are ordered to provide a full accounting. Their lawyers advise them to sell the suburban mansion before additional liens consume the remaining equity. Tax authorities open examinations into unreported transfers and deductions connected to the family companies. The villa they plan to purchase disappears first. Then the cars are returned, the jewelry is sold, and the house is listed below the price Barbara once claimed it deserved. By the end of the season, they move into a cramped rental apartment. None of this happens because I invent evidence or misuse my position. It happens because data finally forces them to answer for what they chose to do. The first voicemail arrives before sunrise, the morning after the gala. Barbara does not apologize for ignoring Lily's surgery. She begins by saying the public scene has damaged her health and asks me to call before Richard's attorneys make everything worse. The second message comes from Jason. He insists the defective monitors were a misunderstanding created by overseas paperwork and says I owe him a private meeting because family should not destroy family over business. By noon, there are 23 missed calls, 11 voice messages, and a stream of emails with subject lines ranging from "Please be reasonable" to "Emergency family loan." I create one rule before listening to anything. I will not respond while angry, guilty, or tired. Helen arranges for every legal communication to pass through her office. My assistant at Apex filters messages sent to my corporate account. I change the security codes on the townhome, remove my parents from the hospital's emergency contact list, and give Lily's school written instructions that no relative may collect her without my direct authorization. These actions are not revenge. They are the practical boundaries I should have established years ago. For several days, I do not open the family mailbox. I focus on Lily's medication schedule and my transition into Apex. Her strength improves a little each morning. She walks from her bedroom to the kitchen without needing to stop. She laughs when Sarah brings a ridiculous stuffed giraffe that is almost taller than she is. Every small sign of recovery reminds me what was at stake while my family drank wine and called her a problem. A week later, I decide to hear one voicemail. Not because they deserve access, but because I want to know whether anything in their language has changed. I choose the longest message from Barbara. Her voice is shaky. She says she has been thinking constantly about family and forgiveness. For a few seconds, the words sound almost sincere. Then she reaches the real purpose. Richard may lose the mansion. Jason needs money for a defense attorney and a temporary apartment. Barbara says a loan of $2 million would stabilize everyone and allow them to protect the family name. She suggests I withdraw the trust lawsuit in exchange for their promise to visit Lily more often. I stop the recording there. Even their apology is a transaction. They are offering attention to my child as payment for access to my money. They still do not ask how she is sleeping, whether the incision is healing, or whether she is frightened. They ask me to purchase the performance of love that should have been freely given. I delete the voicemail and empty the trash folder so I cannot listen again during a moment of weakness. Then, I block every number. I block Barbara, Richard, Jason, and Ashley. I block the secondary numbers they use when the first ones fail. I instruct Helen that any necessary contact must be written relevant to the litigation and delivered through counsel. I remove the family group chat from my phone after downloading the messages as evidence. The final image in the archive is still the photograph of Lily beneath the hospital lights, followed by their contempt. I do not need to carry that conversation in my pocket anymore. The messages then begin arriving by mail. Barbara sends flowers to Lily with a card that says, "Grandparents make mistakes, but the delivery form lists my corporate office instead of our home because she still does not know where I feel safe." Jason sends a package containing the stuffed bear he once forgot to bring to the hospital and includes a note asking me to remember the good years. Helen returns both packages with a written notice that gifts will not create access to Lily or alter the legal boundaries. I feel a brief ache when the flowers leave, but relief follows it. A boundary can be compassionate without becoming negotiable. I also begin meeting with a family therapist recommended by the pediatric cardiology team. The sessions are not about repairing my relationship with Barbara or Richard. They are about unlearning the reflex that makes me feel responsible for every crisis they create. The therapist asks me to separate guilt from responsibility. Their fear is real, she says, but it does not make their demands legitimate. I write that sentence in a notebook and keep it beside my bed. On difficult nights, when an unknown number appears on the screen, I read it before pressing block. Jason attempts one final approach through Mrs. Higgins. He appears outside the townhome on a cold afternoon and asks my neighbor to tell me he is desperate. The new security camera alerts me before he reaches the porch. I speak through the intercom without opening the door. All communication must go through my attorney, I say. He looks directly at the camera and accuses me of enjoying his collapse. I answer only once. I did not choose your products, hide their failure rates, inflate their price, or spend trust money that belonged to someone else. You built this result. Then I disconnect the speaker and send the recording to Helen. That evening, Lily notices I have removed the framed family photograph from the hallway. She asks whether Grandma and Grandpa are angry with us. I sit beside her on the sofa and give her the simplest, honest answer a 5-year-old can carry. I tell her that some adults make unsafe choices and that my job is to keep our home peaceful while they learn to be responsible. I do not teach her hatred. I also do not teach her that love requires accepting cruelty. She thinks for a moment and asks whether Nancy and Sarah are still allowed to visit. When I say yes, her whole face brightens. The quiet that follows is not empty. It is the first genuine peace I have known. No telephone call can order me to abandon Lily for Jason's convenience. No threat involving rent or inheritance can force me to apologize for existing. I no longer rehearse explanations in my head or wonder which achievement might finally earn my mother's approval. The door remains closed, the phone remains silent, and our life continues without them. A month after the gala, Nancy and Sarah join us for dinner. Lily insists on setting 3 extra places and tells Nancy that hospital nurses are allowed to become family when they are kind. We eat simple pasta at the kitchen table, while rain taps against the windows. No one asks about my salary, title, or settlement. They ask Lily about her drawings and applaud when she finishes her breathing exercise. The evening shows me that silence from my relatives does not mean isolation. It creates room for people who arrive without conditions. The trust case eventually ends through a court-approved settlement based on the forensic accounting. The missing principal penalties and legal costs are restored from the sale of family assets. I direct the recovered money into a protected fund for Lily's future medical care and education. I take no pleasure in reading the final order, but I feel relief. Grandfather Henry intended that money to protect me. It finally does. Barbara sends one handwritten letter through counsel after the settlement. Helen asks whether I want to read it. I decline. A boundary is not real if it disappears every time the person who crossed it changes methods. I ask Helen to retain the letter with the closed file. Then I go home, help Lily complete her breathing exercises, and make dinner. Their crisis is no longer the center of my day. Their voices have become exactly what they demanded Lily become in theirs, not my problem. 6 months later, morning sunlight pours across the small garden behind the townhome, which is now legally and permanently mine through the trust I control. The space has changed since the rainy afternoon when Barbara tried to force us out. A new wooden fence surrounds the yard. Raised flower beds line the patio, and a bright yellow swing hangs from the strongest branch of the old maple tree. Lily races across the grass, wearing a red sweater and sneakers, her laughter rising above the soft rustle of leaves. The scar on her chest is healing into a thin, pale line. Her cheeks are full of color, and she no longer becomes breathless after a few steps. Her cardiologist says the repair is holding beautifully. This morning she has already chased Bubbles carried a watering can from one flower bed to another and demanded that Sarah time how fast she can reach the fence. Every ordinary movement feels extraordinary to me. Near the back fence stands a small blue birdhouse Lily painted during cardiac rehabilitation. The roof is uneven, and one wall is covered with silver stars. She calls it the Strong Heart House because the birds can rest there before flying again. I donated the first version of my mobile monitoring system to the rehabilitation center and funded a family support room beside the pediatric intensive care unit. It contains reclining chairs, meal vouchers, charging stations, and emergency grants for parents who cannot leave their children. I remember the stale coffee and empty visitor chair from the night of Lily's surgery. No parent should have to choose between staying beside a sick child and keeping a roof over their head. Nancy visits often enough that Lily has given her a permanent cup in the kitchen cabinet. Sarah helps tend the flowers, and Mrs. Higgins supervises every neighborhood child from her porch as if she runs a small security agency. The house is no longer evidence of a trick I played on my family. It is simply home, noisy, safe, and filled with people who choose to be present. I stand inside the open kitchen doors with a tablet in my hand. My work at Apex has expanded far beyond reviewing individual vendor contracts. I now lead a system-wide pediatric technology initiative that combines predictive monitoring, transparent procurement records, and independent safety testing. The first group of hospitals using the program has reported faster intervention times and fewer equipment-related alerts. No machine is approved because a salesman bought an expensive dinner. Every decision is tied to verified performance data and patient safety. A notification appears on my phone. A National Healthcare Technology Association has named me its Woman of Excellence in Technology and Health. The article includes a photograph from the Apex campus and describes the platform I built at my kitchen table while raising Lily. For a moment, I allow myself to feel proud, not because my family will see the award, but because Lily will grow up knowing that quiet work can become real power. Another alert appears beneath it. It is a brief local business report confirming that the last major asset connected to Jason's bankrupt estate has been repossessed by the bank. The article also notes that Richard and Barbara have completed the sale of their remaining investment properties under the trust settlement. 6 months ago, such a headline would have filled me with vindication. Today, it feels distant, like news about strangers in another city. I turn off the alerts and place the phone inside a kitchen drawer. Outside, Lily calls for me to watch her jump from the bottom step without holding the railing. I walk into the sunlight and stand close enough to catch her, though she does not need me to. She lands securely on both feet and throws her arms into the air as if she has won an Olympic medal. I cheer until she dissolves into laughter. They once taught me that victory meant earning a place at their table. I understand now that the real victory was building a life in which their table no longer mattered. I did not defeat their cruelty by begging them to recognize my worth, or by becoming cruel in return. I defeated it by protecting my daughter, telling the truth, and making their approval irrelevant. Lily takes my hand and pulls me toward the garden. I follow her into the bright morning, leaving my phone, the headlines, and the people who abandoned us behind.